Our last chapter in this section is Welcome the Pressure. That title may sound a little strange because a lot of times pressure is something we want to avoid. Stress and pressure in our lives is not something that necessarily we want to invite. But we've come to realize that this pressure, especially for high achievers and people who are stretching for some lofty goals, is a necessity.
You know, Joe, it's such a privilege for me to do these workshops with you and especially talk about welcoming the pressure, because I just remember you as always being able to perform in that moment when the pressure was the greatest. I just wanted to ask, what is it like being in the huddle, you know, in the last series of downs when you're sort of down by 5 points? That must be the most pressurized environment.
Well, it is to a certain degree, but it's also the most fun time to be in for me. I loved it. I enjoyed being there. I'll tell you a story about, a lot of people have heard about this John Candy incident that I had that was, but it's typical of me because I like to joke around, I like to play around, and people couldn't believe that we were down, losing the Super Bowl, making a final drive for 96 yards or something like that, and 92 yards, I can't remember what it was, but I spotted John Candy on the sideline and pointed it out to one of my teammates, and people were just amazed, as was my teammate, that I could sit there and point out John Candy when we're getting ready to make a drive to win the Super Bowl. But I guess the point is that I would have done that in the beginning of the game to the same guy, because he's the guy who was always concerned about who was at the game. So he'd tell you, wow, did you see so-and-so when you're warming up? So I just thought that he would appreciate that I saw John Candy, and he didn't have the same appreciation as I thought he would at that point in time. But I just tried to be myself so that when it comes into that situation, we practice those things, you know, every week. So time is an essence for a lot of people, where while you have a minute and a half, well, in football, that's an eternity. When a pass play takes 6 or 7 seconds on an average, sometimes up to 9. But still, that's a lot of plays to run to have an opportunity to get in the end zone.
Armando, I've been fortunate to be at your beautiful vineyard in Sonoma. And the day I was there, you were showing me around and talking about the different flavors and colors of the leaves, and it seemed peaceful. But I'm sure that during harvest time, you wouldn't have that same luxury to talk to me. Is that one of the most pressurized times of your experience at the vineyard?
It truly is. It's a time when things need to be done now. So the pressure truly is on to get the crop in, to pick the vineyard, and to get into the winery. So it is a time that things need to get done. So the pressure is on, and you know, we handle it by getting it done.
I know you get it done, and we've talked about this, but if you had to say there was a little bit of a secret way, or what's your method, what's your style of handling pressure?
I think doing one thing at a time. Just kind of set your course and say, this is what needs to get done, and just stay with it, you know, and to complete the task, but one thing at a time.
Colleen, I can't imagine a more pressurized situation than being in a skating competition. How do you help prepare those that you train to really welcome that pressure and really perform in that moment?
Well, you mentioned preparation, and to prepare them, I just prepare them through training so that they can go out there and really trust their training. And one of the things that we do is I teach them to think of it as bring it on. The more pressure, the better. The better the competitors, the more better that you need to push yourself to be. And sometimes you can have 5 judges, sometimes you have 9 judges. More the better. So I just have them think of it as more fun. The more pressure, the more adrenaline rush they're going to have, and the more they can use that to their, in a positive way, to bring out their very best. So I always just teach them from the very young age, just bring it on, have fun with it.
That's great. Chris, we had the fun experience of working together last year in Chicago, and I watched you masterfully teach Aikido as a way to, excuse me because I really don't understand Aikido that much and I'd like you to explain it, but it seemed like it was a way to diffuse or redirect pressure and tension.
Well, in Aikido, which we use as a metaphor for servant leadership with corporate leaders. In the art of Aikido, pressure is seen as a source of power and energy. And the essence of Aikido is non-resistance to that change. So we welcome the pressure, we usher the pressure through. And it's enabled some of our corporate clients to change their attitude towards the changes that hit them all the time. And they began to understand that they don't have to hit it head on all the time, that there's a possibility that they can get with the pressure of change and glean some energy just like a sailor gleans energy when the wind changes.
Now, is Aikido something that the more you do and the more repetitions you go through, the easier the channeling of all this energy and pressure becomes?
Absolutely. Those who practice the art over time develop more and more relaxed presence under pressure. On the other hand, we've found that we can share some of the basic principles with folks in business. They don't have to become martial artists to learn breath control, to manage a board meeting. So it does translate. But the more you play with it, the better you get.
Yeah, and it seems to be a consensus from what I'm hearing from this group is about the more things that you do and practice and prepare yourself for, the better your preparation. How many times you've been in the crush of the year, how many times you've been in and prepared yourself for getting on the ice, the repetition, the day-to-day process of going through. You're prepared for that. Really allows you to, I think, to enhance that pressure and say, it's really not pressure anymore because I've done it so many times that you welcome it and you're prepared for it. I think people get in a pressure situation who fail just aren't ready for that situation. They have not been there and are not prepared for it.
So Joe, when were you the most afraid as a performer? On the football field, or maybe in your speeches in business meetings? When does the pressure kind of get to you?
Pressure probably gets to me more than anything in speaking in front of a large group. I've done it a lot, but I've never felt, that butterfly feeling in your stomach more times than right before I get ready to speak. And once I get into the flow, I know I've done it a million times, but it's that start. And I think pressure to a certain degree, though, is also something that I think you have to like, but you also, that nervous feeling that people have when it comes to pressure, I think says a lot about that individual at the same time, because if I didn't care about what I did, I don't think that person feels pressure. So that tells me something right away about the individual. When you go to a game or you're going, are you nervous? No, I'm not nervous. Well, I hope you're on the other team, because obviously to me it seems like that you don't care enough about what you're about to do.
Let's talk about how we're going to practice welcoming pressure. It might sound a little crazy, welcome pressure. But the next time you find yourself overwhelmed with an upcoming performance or a competition or an event, instead of fighting or resisting the pressure that you feel, let's welcome it instead. Let's invite it into our life. And why? Because pressure is energy, and that energy can help propel us to another level. And let's talk to ourselves by saying, I love the pressure. Bring it on.